What's good, good people? Welcome to My Be More project. What's the 410? Where we're standing in the gap of the news you can use and the positive stories that your spirit needs. I'm your host, Dion Joyner Weems. It's like a tribe called Quest. You got to say it all together. And though I may wear many hats, they all sit on top of the same mission to uplift, amplify, and empower the stories of truth tellers and change makers. Whether that's through hashtag My Be More Project, my book, That Part, What Some Know But Won't Tell You About Motherhood, or as the CEO of Audacity Group, a global marketing shop, we tell bold stories. And in 2022, we did a listening session and we found out what you and I already know. People trust people more than they do a system. And that's why we center the voices of the people that are on the ground doing the work. Like co-founder of the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, Dr. Joanne Martin. Let's bring her up. Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin, how are you?
I'm great, Dion, and thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
Now, Dr. Martin, I would like to give your background and what we look at this as our verbal flowers. Okay. So let's take this in. Dr. Joanne Martin is the keeper of a legacy she and her beloved husband, the late Dr. Elmer Martin, built brick by sacred brick. The National Great Blacks in Wax Museum, intentionally anchored in East Baltimore, is where Black history doesn't whisper, it witnesses. Together, they turned a dream into a monument, a museum into a movement, and wax figures into fierce declarations of who we are and who we've always been. Dr. Martin honors her husband with every breath of her brilliance, ensuring that our stories are not just remembered, but revered. She is Baltimore royalty, visionary, vessel, and voice for people too mighty to be forgotten. How you doing, Dr. Martin?
I'm fine, Dion. When I read that, I almost want to say, well, who is she talking about?
Oh, you, these are my.
That was so beautiful. And you know what resonates for me is the statement about revering Elmer, and it with every word, every breath, because he was our visionary. He is our visionary, and without him, there really would be no Great Blacks in Wax Museum.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that you honor him that way by recognizing just how important he is to the building of this institution is
Thank you.
heart heartwarming for me.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Before we jump into the questions, we like to loosen folks up by giving a taste of the personality behind the professional. So we call this They Eight. We give you 8 rapid fire questions that we ask you not to overthink. Just give it to us straight. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
Crab cake, fried or broiled?
Fried.
There you go. Nickname your parents or friends used to call you.
Joey, Jolie, Joey, and Jolie. But my family members call me Joe.
Oh, I like that. Name one song on your get pumped amp when you need to get fired up, Dr. Martin. What song you putting on?
Oh my goodness! I've been thinking about how much I've heard Sly Stone for the past few days. I mean, it's always I love Smokey's Soul Town, and so I listen to that every time I'm in my car. I'm listening to that. So anything that you hear on the Smokey Channel.
I love it. After a long day at the museum, what's your guilty pleasure? Wine, sweets, reality show?
Um, Probably sleep.
That is more than fair. What's a talent or skill no one would assume you have?
Cooking.
You have, I haven't tasted it. Wait a
Well,
minute.
I am a. I was just telling someone a few minutes ago, and then people are surprised by that. but I am a great cook.
Go ahead,
and
Dr.
and
Martin.
people bother me about cooking. They find ways. My birthday was this week, but I had to make a birthday cake for someone else because he for my husband's granddaughter, Brittany, her boyfriend, significant other, Damal, says that I make the best lemon cake in America.
Oh, that went recording and on record.
But they also say the same thing about my peach cobbler. Someone said she told B. Smith, I think her name, that she makes the best peach cobbler in America, and she makes a homemade crust. And someone else talks about my sweet potato pie. And someone says her barbecue ribs fall off because people think
Dr. Martin, you're making me hungry. It's too
they
much.
say my barbecue ribs fall off the bone. So
Okay.
I'm a cook. Yeah.
All right, Baltimore, we're going to get a plate. Would you survive a zombie apocalypse?
I figure I've survived everything else. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Invisibility or teleport?
Teleport.
I say the same thing. Last question. If you had, and I have a feeling I know the answer. If you had 25 hours in a day, what would you do with that extra hour?
I'm sure it would be something to build up Great Blacks in Wax Museum or something. For me, Great Blacks in Wax Museum and engaging with youth um, are one and the same. So engaging with youth by trying to make sure that they ensure that there's always going to be a Great Blacks in Wax Museum, and I have just a following of youth who promised me that young people who grew up at the museum, like a David Fakunle that you know,
Hey,
or
David,
yes,
Dr. David.
Dr.
Mhm,
David,
mhm.
yes, he's my godson, so I can say David.
Yes, ma'am.
And his sister Mary Fakunle is my goddaughter. William Redmond, who was 10 years old when he started with the museum and is still very much a part of this museum. And they have assured me that they are going to always make sure that that dream of Elmer and Joanne Martin is kept alive. So I guess I would use that hour just lifting them up.
Dr. Martin, thank you so much for they ate, and you definitely ate that. Thank you very much. I want to jump into the first question is what did what did you and your late husband, what did you not see in the world or in Baltimore that made you think we need a National Great Blacks and Wax Museum?
I didn't see an effort to erase our history and therefore erase us, or to erase us and therefore erase our history. I didn't see that. I didn't see having to fight for civil rights that we thought we had gained. I didn't see the hatred and cruelty that becomes the reason for some people being. Their very essence is hatred and cruelty. Never thought that I would live in a world where I'm fighting hatred and cruelty in the same way that my parents and grandparents did. I didn't see young people who have to struggle to have a future. We thought that everything that was done before, that every generation wants to make things better for the generations that follow behind them, and that the struggle continues.
The struggle continues. Um, was there I People need to understand that the museum that they see now, it didn't start off as the bricks that how did the museum evolve? What was the genesis?
A part of it was that my husband Elmer and I went to a wax museum in Florida. I'm originally from Florida, same town, Yulee, Florida, that Derrick Henry is from. We're
Yes, Ravens. Hmm.
Yes. um, but we went. We his grandmother, my husband's grandmother, Alberta Cason, who raised him, and four of his brothers. And you know the grandmother story that you sent me, but she raised him. She was maybe a little under 5 feet. Elmer was 6'6". He had a brother 6'9". Brothers, so this little tiny lady who ruled the roost. But we had taken her to Potter's Wax Museum in St. Augustine, Florida, and Elmer and I were fascinated by the just the whole wax technique, and we wanted to flip it because wax museums are either celebrity type or Hall of Fame type, or or horror
Yes,
type,
ma'am.
and we saw this as a way to tell a serious history and for me to put a face on a history that's been faceless. I was
Hmm.
just telling some young people, I went to school in the segregated South, had no idea. Booker T. Washington was probably the most powerful black man of his day. And I had no idea until I saw the wax figure what Booker T. Washington looked like growing up in the segregated South. So
Mm.
for me, the idea of putting a face on a
Yes,
history,
yes.
but also Elmer sponsored a little league baseball team of Baltimore City children. He had ID pictures taken of them so that they could play in the league. And one of the kids came up to him angry, tears welled up in his eyes, and demanded that Elmer make the photographer take the picture over. And telling Elmer they got me too black in this picture. I don't want to be as black as they got me in this picture. And he's talking to someone from the Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, Black is Beautiful generation. And I don't want to be this black as they got me in this picture. So for me, those wax figures say that from the darkest to the lightest and everything in between, this is who you are. Embrace it because your ancestors have fought hard and want you to fight hard to demand that you have a place in this nation and in this world, to claim it.
So you were taking wax figures from, is this like in your car? Are you taking it into classrooms? Like how, before you had the brick and mortar, how, how did this work?
We Elmer and I purchased four wax figures. And one of the stories is that we were trying to get information when we made up our minds after Potter's Wax Museum. Elmer said we're going to build. He said he'd gone to Howard Library, Howard University Library, and stayed all day. And he'd gone to the Library of Congress, which is very much in the news
Yes.
these days. And he said he could find no indication of a Black History wax museum anyplace, or a black wax museum any
Mm-hmm.
place.
Mm-hmm.
And he said we're going to build it. We're going to build the first one.
A
And
man with a vision. Go ahead.
yes,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Yes.
And then we're saying, well, is there a wax figure supermarket somewhere where you go, go just get wax figures off the rack or off the shelf? And so we called around. Nobody would give us any information. And then finally, someone felt sorry for Elmer and the people he had on the phone trying to get this information. And someone said, there's a wax figure maker on the East Coast. In fact, he's in your city.
What?
And his name is Rob Dorfman. So Elmer, we got the phone number. We called Rob Dorfman, and Elmer went to meet with him, and he told Rob what we were trying to do, and Rob said, "Well, I make wax figures. I build wax figures all over the nation, particularly on the East Coast. Why don't you and your wife let me build it and own it, and you run it for me?" And Emma said, Rob, you have our idea, you have our concept,
Oh man.
um, and if you and you have the resources. If you decided to take our concept and our idea, there would be nothing we could do about it. But whereas you have the resources, I don't feel that you have the right or the passion to tell our history. And Rob thought about it for a second and he said, "You're right."
Wow.
And he put us on essentially what was the layaway plan. And so
Wax figures on layaway.
the first four that we got through Rob. Dion, I told this story I was invited to present for a stoop story.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I told where they have people, they have a theme, and you tell a stoop story.
Yes, ma'am.
And someone came up to me afterwards and he said from the audience and he said, "Joanne, do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, you look familiar." I didn't have a clue. He said, "I'm Rob Dorfman."
Stop.
I said, "Rob, did you know I was going to be here?" He said, "No, my wife and I just like stoop stories,
Wow.
and we attend events like this."
Wow, that is power. Talk about alignment. Wow, that's powerful, Dr. Martin.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But
Keep going. I'm
so
sorry.
Rob very much an important part of
Yes,
how
ma'am.
we got the first four figures, and then eventually two more, and then building from there. And we use a completely different technique now. The Rob Dorfman technique is not what we use. Our Mahalia Jackson and Mary McLeod Bethune and so forth. Those figures are so much above that. We've evolved, and so far from those early figures, but nevertheless, there would not have been a great Blacks in Wax without a Rob Dorfman. And we would pay him, as I said, he put us on layaway plan, and we go over, and Elmer give him a little bit of money, and Elmer jokingly say, "Well, Rob, I guess today we paid for an eyeball," because
Piece
we
by piece. Piece by piece.
yes, had so little money, but were able to do this because of Rob.
Jesus. Doc, Dr. Mother, Dr. Martin, was there ever a moment when you questioned or your husband questioned whether or not the museum would make it, that you could keep it going?
Um, we strongly believe we've come this far by faith. We strongly believe that there was no sacrifice too great for us to make, and that God would help us find a way. We sold, I'm not sold, we pawned my ring. I tell people there's the ring story that is very much a part of museum lore, where Elmer and we had the storefront in downtown Baltimore on Saratoga Street.
Yes,
We were renting that storefront, and we had no more money. We had just hobbled along. We opened July 9th, 1983, and immediately had people. It was summertime and people were on vacation, so we had a museum full of people. We didn't understand that people go back to their real life in September. The kids go back to school, the parents are no longer on vacation. And there we were in a museum looking at each other, and we didn't have any money. And Elmer, being Elmer, he's trying to assure me everything is going to work out. We've made it
yes,
this far. And then one day he let it be known that we didn't have the money to pay the rent. And I looked around, and he's still assuring me that everything is going to be okay. But I look around, and he's running around our apartment with this paper bag and putting our wedding gifts in the bag. And then he gets into his van and says, "Follow me. I mean, come with me." And so I get in the van with him, and we go into a very interesting area of Baltimore where there are pawn shops. And Elmer gets out with the bag, and he goes into a pawn shop with, our toasters and all these kind of things that we got in his wedding gifts. And he told me to lock the door. And so that's scary because I'm saying he wants me to lock myself
inside.
in to this place that where he's stepping out into.
Yeah.
And he came back about 10 minutes later saying they don't want any of this.
Ah,
They said that the only thing that sells for them are guns and rings. And when he said rings, it just kind of hung there. And I saw such a pained look on his face. And I realized that he's asking me, this symbol of love that I have for you, I need you to give it up. And I didn't want to see that pain on his face. And I'm saying, well, and I'm trying to pull the ring off my finger. This ring, TR, I'm trying to pull the ring off my finger. And it doesn't want to come off.
It
These the
doesn't
way
want.
these rings can be sometimes, and they're
Yes,
just
ma'am.
never. Yeah, and so I finally got it off, and I gave it to him, and he went back in and came back with the money for us to pay the rent. And the other part of this is a few days later, Elmer came home with the calendar. And every morning before he did anything else, he'd mark a day off of the calendar. And one day I taught at Coppin in this great big open space, and this big tall person walked in and walked up to me to my desk. And the students, it was a tutoring program, so students aren't there in the classroom; they're there for tutoring. And um, this guy walks up to me. There, my students are watching every move. He puts the ring back on my finger. He kisses it and says, "And don't you ever take this ring off."
Oh, okay. That's
And as
amazing.
many times as I tell that story, Dion, that's the reaction that I get. That you feel it. I told Kay Wise that this story, and because she had been saying, "I understand, Elmer took your ring from you," and I'm saying, "No, Kay, Dr. Kay," and she said, I got it. I got the story, and I feel the pain. And I know that if my husband came to me and said, "This is what we need to do,"
Then that's
this
what we
is what
need
I
to
would
do.
have done.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
And you understand that
I
too,
do.
Dion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But how he, again, that vision of marking off the calendar, it, he always knew where he was going. You can tell he always knew where he was going, and
Yeah.
that's powerful in and of itself. Can I say to you that my grandpa, uh, Frederick Douglass Taylor, right there on Baker Street, my when you were on Saratoga, my grandfather was such a fan of. He was from Richmond, Virginia, and then they moved to Baltimore. Um, and he would talk to me about the richness of our African American heritage, and he so respected your vision, the storefront. He was excited about it. So understand, July 9th is my mother's birthday.
Wow.
1983, I was 3 years old. We were there. We were there.
Oh,
I
Dion.
was a baby. I was 3 years old,
Oh,
and
wow.
trying not to is the fact that my mother also shared with me that you taught her, it was English at Coppin. And with this being the anniversary, my father will have been gone for 4 months now. And today,
Wow.
and this was my first Father's Day without him. And it's recognizing that the stories in Baltimore, the people that are on the ground doing the work in this city to really understand how tightly woven we all are. We are so much more connected than we give ourselves credit for.
Right.
And you'll only recognize that through the storytelling. It's not until someone tells you the story that you're able to see the point of connection. And when you see your point of connection, you don't feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just wanted to say to you that it was. I know that we've worked together for years, over a span of years, but for you to for me to realize how it was in my blood. That was hashtag my be more. It was my grandfather getting my whole family on my
Mm-hmm.
mother's birthday because we are going to go because I followed this couple and what they're doing is major and we're going to make sure that we're, you know what I mean? So and there was 3-year-old Dion right there. So to
That
be able
is.
to sit here with you today, it is a great honor, a great honor.
And Dion, sometimes You don't know what the connection is, but you know that there's a connection. And from the moment that you and I first met, there was that connection. The way that you worked to assure and ensure that Great Blacks in Wax, that people knew about us, that the word was out, um, that we were respected through those channels that you um, controlled, or sometimes didn't feel you had control, but you had a voice to
Yes, ma'am.
fight for institutions like Great Blacks in Wax, and that we've always been on your radar.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
you have always worked hard to keep the word out about us and what we do, and I just very much appreciate that. And I know that I'm not alone, that you do that for so many other organizations, so for so many black led organizations, for so many small businesses, for our children.
Oh, Dr. Martin, okay, let me tell you, you are the segue queen because I need to understand. Can you tell us more as you're talking about needing to be in the know? The annual Voices of History Street Fair. This is an event that is coming up on June 28th. That, hey, because hey, we're telling stories here, people, but there is something that you could take advantage of right now. Dr. Martin, can you tell us about the event, what it is, what to expect, how people can engage?
We've done this for the last 8 years, and it was supposed to be 10. COVID took away 2 of those years. But with the street fair, it started out by showcasing our youth, our growing griot, where they could don costumes and become I'm Harriet Tubman, or
Yeah.
and these were young people, um, 8, 9, on up to 14, 15. And we called it the Voices of History Street Fair. Um, and it's still that. It's the Voices of History. It's still this year, youth are going to be front and center on the stage. Kia Kaleyi kids, the African, cultural drumming
Yes.
uh, uh, group.
Company. Yes, ma'am.
We have gospel choir of youth, and so youth being prominent as a part of the street fair, um, face painting and all of those things. Um, John Carrington, the magician, who teaches youth and teaches math through his magic act. Um, we are going to tie to Juneteenth. Um, the Juneteenth was one of many freedom celebrations, and Juneteenth is tied to what was going on in Texas. But the ring shout was a way of our celebrating freedom long before. Baltimore, many people tied freedom of the slaves to the Emancipation Proclamation, because um, Abraham Lincoln, when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, it went into effect on July 1st. I'm sorry, January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
But for New Year's Eve, people in their churches, it was a symbol of waiting for freedom. It became a part of watch night.
Mm-hmm.
Watch night was seeing the initially seeing the new year in, but it took on the meaning of waiting for, watching for freedom. And
Mm,
churches all over, even today now, they use watch night in its traditional meaning, but it also they also use it as a symbol of waiting for freedom, which is supposed to would have occurred with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. So all of that we will talk about in teaching about Juneteenth, the Pinkster holiday. Pinkster was a Dutch holiday celebrated in Hudson Valley, New York, Hudson Valley, which was New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all of those as Dutch country. Um, um, but New York was very prominent in the ownership of slaves.
Mm,
Many people don't know that because it's so supposed to be this progressive
right.
city.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, but the enslaved would come to the Pinkster Festival, much like our Voices of History Festival. The Pinkster Festival and the enslaved people and free blacks and the Dutch would come to this
Mm,
Pinkster Festival, and they would eventually the slaves started selling their wares. They'd have berries that they'd grown and handmade goods and so forth. Um, it As the Dutch decided that they wanted to be American, which meant white,
mm,
they started celebrating holidays that would help them identify as American, like
got
Fourth of July.
right, right. Mm-hmm,
Okay, and no longer Pinkster.
mm-hmm.
But we had branded ourselves as a part of Pinkster. It is considered to be an African American holiday, and the oldest African American holiday celebrated in the 13 colonies. When you look up Pinkster today, we took over that holiday and it is still celebrated.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about Pinkster as one of those freedom celebrations, along with the ring shout and watch night and all of those ways that we celebrated freedom that many of us know absolutely nothing about.
The fact that you'll be able to get this history, it's history, fun, free, vendors, food, stories outside, and you can go inside to tour the museum and do all of this from 11 to 6 p.m. for free outside. And to understand the importance of, because this will take me into my next question, for those that come and experience and then they want to take the tour of the museum, what we see now of the museum, I noticed that some buildings, some row homes have been deconstructed. I'm seeing a lot of open space happening over there. Dr. Martin, what's popping with the museum? I feel some changes.
Well, we are doing our expansion project in phases.
Talk about it. Yes, yes.
And eventually, phase one will bring us from the firehouse where the museum is located at
Right.
1601 up to um, parts of the parking lot. So 1619. The buildings right now are 1601 to 1605. And we
Okay.
had to leave oh 03 and oh 05 down because oh 03 is where our slave ship exhibit is. And '05 is where the Obama scene is. And so we had to leave those spaces up when the time allows, then we will be tearing those down. But only when we have built up from 1611, though that we tore down '07, '09, and 11. Those are the ones that you saw that came down recently. And going back to Mayor Rawlings Blake, we tore down 1613 to 1645. Those
I
were already down. So the parking lot space that you see and what's left is the mansion building at
yes.
1649, which will remain up, and the museum at 1601 will remain. Everything else either has been torn down or the two buildings that are remaining. And so we're talking about starting with an additional 20,000 square feet of space, and then adding on
Yeah.
until we've covered the entire block.
It's that part, understanding that with time, that you will have, with intention of being there, changed the entire block.
Yes. With
That's
the
powerful.
Yes, and Elmer said that conventional wisdom all over this nation is that you hide your poverty areas. And
Mm.
once you succeed in hiding them, then you can succeed in neglecting them.
Knowing them. Mm-hmm.
But that we were going to create a museum so powerful, with history so enlightening and so necessary, that people from all over the world were going to want to come to visit. And that in the process, we could show that museums and community are not mutually exclusive, that they um, can thrive together. That our African American communities, if we don't run away from them, our African American communities can thrive because we can have museums there and cultural centers there and culture there, like our Voices of History Street there.
The spirit is moving me. So, and I can feel my tech operator like, okay, Dion, what's she about to say? Um, if you really take a step back from your story and understand how this started with an idea, a husband and a wife, an idea, a big vision, and for him to pass and for you to carry out the course, this was not an easy, you had to fight. You had to fight a lot more than I think people understand
Uh,
to be where you are. And you've had to walk into rooms where I've seen people, and pardon my French, Dr. Martin walks in, it's like, oh shit. It's like, oh, as I'm listening, I've spoken to you more times than I can count. But listening to you right now today, it's taking in the actual, you are actually powered by faith and love in rooms that were putting up barriers. And now look at you, 2025, and the vision, the renderings of what this is going to look like. Damn, Dr. Martin, you are bad. That's not easy. Your husband is proud.
and that means a lot, Dion. Not just that you can see it. You know that there's been a struggle. You know the journey. You know the strength that I've had to just muster. Sometimes just the fact that I'm doing this and Elmer's not by my side, physically by my side. But you know, I I talk about the fact that I sat on a plane coming from Egypt, knowing that Elmer's body was lying underneath me in the air cargo. And Carol Jolly, that that she's been with me forever. And when she heard me say that out loud, she said, "I never heard you say that. I never even thought about the fact that you were flying on a plane where there was Dr. Elmer Martin's body." And but I made a promise to him.
Yeah.
I said, sitting on that plane, Elmer, you lived and died for this museum. I'm going to do everything I can to keep your dream alive. And so I really feel that I could do no less. But once I remember saying I had to do something, and Elmer wasn't. I had to do it alone because Elmer wasn't there. And then I looked at my friends, and they were right there with me, and I just felt so bad, and I had to apologize to them. I know that William Redmond, who was 10 years old, and David Fakunle and Dion Joyner Weems have been on this journey with me and would never leave my side and understand the struggle, but have been there to see to it that I had what I needed to in terms of strength and faith to continue the struggle. And of course, the Dr. Elmer Martin. I can't let him down.
You can't. And
And
you,
I start when Elmer died. I said, Elmer, if this had happened to anyone other than you, um, uh, happened to me, and it was anyone other than you, you would be my grief counselor. If I lost a mother or whatever, and that's what you're going to be. And I started every day somewhere in my house saying, "Good morning, God," trying to make sure that I always put God first. Good
yes, ma'am.
morning, God. Good morning, Elmer. And some days, and they were my grief counselors. I didn't want to go, couldn't go to therapy. That's not who I am. But I could speak my truth, my pain, my laughter, whatever it was, because some days I'd start off crying and end up laughing with my good morning, God, good morning, Elmer, or I could start out crying and end up laughing. Start End up laughing and start out laughing and end up crying, whatever it was. But to say this is what I'm thinking today, God and Elmer, and to know that they heard me. So the strength from people who love me, from family, from Elmer's family that I still stay in touch with, from my family, from Yulee, Florida, from people here in Baltimore who've got my back, and for God and Elmer who have my back.
I can't wait for everyone to be able to take this in because it reads like a movie. Um, and now I feel like I just gave away the idea. Damn it! But this has all the makings for it. I want to ask you if you can take us inside of the museum. You know that I have 3 children, and you don't have a favorite, but you love everyone differently. Uh, what what are the exhibits that are a little closer, like what some of your faves within the museum, Dr. Martin?
Well, one of the things I try to look at the visitors, particularly the young visitors, and we have exhibit on the slave ship experience, and someone who had brought a Girl Scout troop there, young Girl Scout troops, and she said all the way home they were talking about the fact that there were young people in the slave ship,
Mm,
young um, there were young enslaved um, people, boys age 8 to 11 in the slave ship, and they talked about that young kids had been made slaves. Um, in the lynching exhibit, there are some photographs of people at lynchings. There are 3 young white girls in the picture, and there were 3 young black boys looking in at the picture in the lynching exhibit. And one of the kids said, "Look at them little girls at that hanging." And one of them said, "Why would their mama, because it's the mama, not the daddy, why would their mama let them be at that hanging?" And the other one said, "My mama sure wouldn't let me be at a hanging."
mm,
And
mm.
as I listened to these kids, and the question that stood out the most for me, along with their shock at having young kids that are hanging, young white girls, why would anybody have them at a lynching, at a hanging? Because you start to indoctrinate them. You start to send out a message, and that's where we are today, trying to send out messages to our children, our children, whoever those children may be, red, black, green, um, all of those, to send out a message to those children that lynching is okay, that um, the way you oppress people, that's okay. um, Another picture where the kids are looking out and mugging for the camera. Some little white children looking out and mugging for the camera, and it's like it wasn't a Kodak moment
Mm.
where someone came ready to take the pictures that they sent as postcards. The book sent as postcards, and that pictures that end up on Facebook and social media. They're rules. You could get.
Right, right. Yes, ma'am.
But these postcards were sent through the United States Post Office,
Allowed.
allowed
Hmm.
legally. So much of what is in there, it has such depth, and that we get to tell those stories, and I try to make sure that our children understand the depth of those stories.
Is there a a story, an ancestor that's close to your heart? Aside from your, so I'll take your husband off of this. I'm taking him off of this list. Who has not made it into the museum? A wax figure.
Well, quite frankly, Elmer.
See, and I knew. Oh my gosh. And
We have a picture of his grandmother, Alberta Kaysen, who raised him. Her picture is, and the room is named for her, the Alberta Kaysen room. And Elmer had intended for there to be a room named for my mother, but no wax figures of Elmer. And people say if there's a wax figure of Elmer, there must be a wax figure of me. I can't imagine that, but no wax
oh,
figure.
no, absolutely. I'm side by side. May I ask you, because you have the long lens of reflection. If Baltimore were a woman sitting across from you right now, what would you say to her?
I guess I'd say what I learned from my mother and from Elmer's grandmother, those two influential people who had to be strong despite the challenges, who had to have a sense of themselves despite the effort to erase
Hmm.
them, who understood the need to help us as young people to grow and develop, but have a sense of humanity. That all of that is necessary for who we are as women, as Black women in Baltimore and throughout this nation, and that we have to continue holding on to the ability to be that.
Dr. Martin, you've been interviewed, you've had discussions and conversations over a lifetime. Is there a question that has not been asked? Or yeah, that has not been asked of you?
I I enjoy the interviews that I've had, and I enjoy the questions. Sometimes I'll get, "Do you want us to send you the questions beforehand?" No, I don't. Give me an idea. I don't want to be so far off the mark that I'm going someplace and this is not what the interview is intended to be and to cover. But at the same time, I want the answers to be spontaneous. I've had to learn to bring forth the answers. And um, so I'm sure there is a question that I haven't been asked. I just hope that I have the wherewithal to answer it when it.
Amen, Dr. Martin. I have one last question for you. Over your lifetime, you have engaged with some of the most prolific leaders, influential, who in Baltimore, past, present, who still whispers in your spirit when you're making decisions?
I don't know. For me, the wonder of having met Rosa Parks. That
Oh
is,
my,
yes, I met Rosa Parks. I can't. That's such a. It's a wondrous and wonderful thing that Rosa Parks came to our museum. She was on her 75th anniversary tour across the nation. She heard about someone, whoever brought her to Baltimore. They heard about the museum. It was the same week that Dion, we opened in 1988 on North Avenue. It was the day after we opened that Rosa Parks came down museum. We have a picture of Rosa Parks staring up at her wax figure.
oh my gosh.
We have Rosa Parks telling us she loves the wax figure, but that she was wearing glasses on the day that that event happened in her life.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we had opened the night before. Her glasses were behind the counter. We had glasses for her. They weren't her glasses, and that's another story. Of people think that we have Malcolm X glasses, and they would steal his glasses, and we'd have to go to the dollar store someplace, Salvation Army, or
Oh
so,
Lord,
and get him some more. But we had Rosa Parks's bought glasses, and we went behind the counter, put them on, and she said, "Now I'm very satisfied with my wax figure." But there she is. I met Colin Powell, um, Perrin Mitchell, and people like that. But Rosa Parks, it,
that's
it just doesn't get
no, it
any more
doesn't.
serious than that.
It was guttural for me. I'm
I
sorry.
know,
Again, I
I
was so loud. I'm sorry. I was like, what? And
yes.
I'm still getting over. Remember, I'm going to butcher her name, Lupita. Remember,
Oh, Lupita Nyong'o, yes.
didn't she either visit a museum or was
She
doing the research?
she visited the museum. Someone in LA. She was getting ready for the 12 years a slave. You
Yeah.
know, from Kenya, and doesn't know slavery, or even though they have a connection. But she told someone that she didn't know how to prepare for her role, and he told her, "You need to get to that little black wax museum in Baltimore."
Um, I need to get some sound effects. That
And
is
so she said she got on a flight, flew to Baltimore, came through the museum, and walked through our double doors. And the first thing she saw was a 500-pound bale of cotton. That's key and central to her role in 12 Years a Slave. She was rewarded for being able to pick 500 pounds of cotton. She said she looked at the bale of cotton and said, "So this is what 500 pounds of cotton looks like." Now
whoa.
it's been processed, so
This man, this
500 pounds of picked cotton would be different. But nevertheless, it's a 500-pound bale of cotton. So the symbolism is there. And then she proceeded to take the reader of this article on a tour of our museum and what she was seeing in our museum. Lupita Nyong'o.
come on back. Let her come on back and bring friends.
And bring friends. Yes.
Wow. Dr. Martin, before we leave, I need for people to understand your level of dedication. If you are watching this or listening to this, before we started the recording, Dr. Martin asked that did we want to turn off the sound of her. What did you say to us, Dr. Martin?
Well, that I have an insulin pump on my body, and it is putting the insulin into my body through needles that are in my body. Sort of like an what do you call it? An IV. And it makes a sound sometimes to let me know that it's that I need to put insulin in my body. And I didn't want to disturb the audience, so I was talking about taking it off, and so that it doesn't make that sound.
And that, people, shows the depth and dedication. We looked at her like, what? No, you don't unplug nothing. You stay still. Dr. Martin, it has been wonderful to just give a sneak peek behind the legend that is. Appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing you on June 28th. We made sure that we're there from 11 to 6 p.m. This is for our annual Voices of History Street Fair. But I can't wait to continue seeing that journey, that block, because you have really
And
changed it.
people, we would appreciate your donations
Yeah.
to what we're trying to do.
And and I'll make sure I do that. So one reason for doing this hashtag might be more project is the fact that people are so used to taking the information but not investing financially into the work. So can you speak specifically, not just a general give, specifically what website, how much? Let's make it real for people how they can speak from their wallet.
They can go to our website, greatblacksinwax.org, and there is a donate button. There is a button where they can take out a membership. They can at all ends. So from the lowest end to the uh, highest,
Yes.
they can donate toward the building of the new National Great Blacks and Wax Museum.
How much of an investment is the expansion like to that you're making here?
Overall, we're talking about a $75 million project. And we divided it into phases. And so phase one, it is about 13 million, and we have raised about seven of those of that 13. So still have a ways to go, and therefore, I mean, it's quite a feat for small museums, small businesses to be able to raise funds in the millions of dollars. Kwai Fume, who was able to get funding for arena players and Great Blacks and Wax and Afro charities and so forth. Our Senator Corey McCray through the
Shout out.
bond, yeah,
Mhm.
and through the city, through the American Rescue Plan Act. Joe Biden and President Biden and donating the money to the city. Um, and so those kinds of funds, the Sherman Family Foundation and so forth. So we're out there working hard, beating the bushes for every penny. But our organizations make money through the grassroots uh,
Right.
me- target and avenue. And so we need people from the grassroots to help us to do this.
Grassroots, but also the fact that there are in thinking about 75 million angel investors, like this is a project, not a project. This is when you want to be on the right side of history. This is a type of investment that ensures legacy. I don't know Lapita, but I'm just saying to really understand the impact that's made by institutions like this, the financial investment is significant, and we should be calling on celebrities, investors. Like this is the time. In addition to the grassroots, the fact for you
Yes,
to even be able to get to the 7 million, that's on the back of people that are wearing a million and one hats. So we're not blind to see what is happening there. Put the money where the mouth is.
exactly. And we are definitely reaching out and trying to up our game for getting those big dollars.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Martin, thank you for your time. I love you dearly. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Dion. You know
Thank
the
you.
feeling is mutual.
I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. Even if it means you gotta leave me and you don't wanna be baby. Look, baby, I'm straight. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great.